Hey guys, Jeff Greco with Eli Crozier. Today we want to talk with you. Actually, today we are behind 100 Center Street, which is where the Donald Trump trial is underway. In fact, jury selection began yesterday and it is continuing today, probably for the next couple of weeks. But it kind of got me in this mode of thinking that part of the reason why this case has been brought involves hush money to people that he may or may not have slept with. And it's not quite on the same parallel, but I get this question quite a bit. People come up to me, friends or colleagues or people that are in the dating world especially, and say, you know what, I was on a dating app, whether it was Tinder, Bumble, whichever. I don't even know what they all are today, but they obviously...
Or you just met a date.
Right, they just had a date.
Yeah.
They matched with somebody. They went drinking. They were at a bar. Both parties were intoxicated. Somebody went to either the guy's house or the girl's house or whomever, and they ended up having sex, which, okay, everything's great. They go their separate ways. And then a few days later or the next day, they get either a series of text messages or phone calls from this other person saying, I don't remember what happened. What did we do? And so this is the question I want to kind of discuss. What happens if you're in that position? Do you know even how to handle that? If somebody calls you and says, hey, I have to be completely honest with you, I don't remember any of this. What did we do? And number one, is it a setup? You know, are you potentially on a recorded call? And we'll talk about that in a moment. Or is this something that's just very innocent that they're just saying, I don't really remember? Are you potentially in trouble? Can you potentially face criminal charges if you are the person, in this case, let's say it's the guy that was, I don't even know if I'd say the initiator or the aggressor, but the girl calls him or texts him the next day and says, I don't remember, what did we do? Can you, fill in those gaps? Well, I mean, what would you tell somebody if they're in that position and they're in, I guess the day after or 2 days later, and they get the phone call or they get a text message from the person that they hooked up with? How should we tell them to handle the situation?
It's a very tough situation because, like you said before, you don't really know who's on the other end of that line. Is this someone that you were just dating for the first time? Is this someone who you're in a long-term committed relationship? And forget the person who's on the other line calling you. You don't know who else is in the background. That could be a police officer, that could be a detective, because she may have reported this to the police. So what do you do in that situation? Not talk about what happened. That would be the first bit of advice.
I agree.
Not admit guilt to anything, not apologize for anything. Don't say anything.
I think that's probably going to be your best bet for right now, right? You don't want to talk. And the reason for that is, number one, what are you admitting to begin with? Because it's a lose-lose situation any way you look at this. Because if you say, yeah, you don't remember that? Oh my gosh, it was great. So now you're acknowledging, number one, that yes, in fact, you did have sex with this person. And they're telling you they don't remember any of it, which implies that you knew what was going on and they did not.
It implies they're incapacitated.
It's exactly right. And now you've taken advantage of this person who was incapacitated by alcohol or drugs or both. And you, on the other hand, remember every bit of it. And it looks like you were not incapacitated. And now you're the person who took advantage of the other person.
Exactly. And again, if you look at it from a detective's perspective, it's the same thing as if a detective said, so tell me what happened that night. And here, instead of the detective asking that question, it's the girl, it's the other party to the incident. So what would I say? Don't talk about it. Get off the line, make up some type of excuse, but don't start talking about what might or might not have happened that night. Or just say you don't remember either. Because if you don't remember and she doesn't remember, it's kind of hard to prove something happened if no one remembers the incident.
Right. I mean, there's there's a lot of times you have these situations where it's no harm, no foul, that two people get intoxicated and maybe both of them got equally intoxicated and they both had too much to drink and they don't remember necessarily having sex or, getting to a point where they engaged in some type of sexual, conduct, and they don't remember it the next day. That does not mean that somebody committed rape.
Correct.
It does not mean that one person was taken advantage of, but I think you're getting set up for potential criminal charges if somebody does, and like Eli, you brought it up, and I think it was a very good point. if this is somebody you've been dating for a long, long time, okay, then that's not an issue. If it's somebody that you know very well, all right, that's a very innocent question. If this is somebody that you hook up with from one of these dating apps that you really don't know from Adam, and now they start asking you questions, it is only going to end very, very badly, because chances are there's a detective standing right next to them listening to the entire recorded phone call, or they're telling them what to text. And all of these text messages, every time you respond, remember, all of these messages are memorialized in writing forever.
It's recorded.
So it's one thing if you were having a face-to-face conversation and you say, listen, I don't remember much about that either. I just know we were both very intoxicated. I don't remember much else. If you have a feeling like that this is going to be a situation where you're being set up or there's some type of controlled call, guess what? That that extra feeling that you have, that sixth feeling, you definitely probably are right on the money on that. And so I would be very careful about engaging in any type of any kind of conversation or text messaging back and forth with somebody who's going to go down that road with you.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. The fact that it's either written or spoken, it's memorialized. Now these are your words which are corroborating whatever the other person might be saying. And I have experience in this office right behind us where we've prosecuted cases where it would have been really hard to prove that something happened, but for a text message or a recorded phone call where the guy practically admits to what happened and makes apologies. And those statements are then used against him in a potential indictment.
Yeah.
Whereas if that wasn't written down, if that wasn't spoken to over the phone, it's hard to prove. And the name of the game is, can they prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? Why dig yourself that hole?
That's absolutely true. And also, you also have to remember, if this does delve into a sexual misconduct or a rape investigation, the first thing they're going to do is try to go backwards and find out where you were drinking. So if the person who claims that they don't remember anything, if they have no independent recollection, which I'm sure there are text messages that are memorialized in writing that I'll meet you at such and such bar at this time, they're going to go and get grand jury subpoenas from these bars, and they're going to find out, they're going to get grand jury subpoenas for bank records. So if you use a credit card to pay for these drinks, and let's say the person you're with is not nearly as much of a drinker as you are, and so you're having 3 drinks for every one of theirs, so those are 4 drinks for every round, right? Just about. So if there were 12 drinks, now it looks like each one of you at least had 6 and 6, where really they only had 3. So you have to be careful. It can be twisted, and look, there's so many different bad avenues that this can kind of go down. So I think, in my opinion, and this is what I would tell any client or any prospective client, don't talk, okay? Don't talk. And number one, you should always make sure that the person that you're about to hook up with has full faculties. Like, do they know what's going on? If they're stumbling into your apartment, not a good idea. You should just say, you know what, you can crash here tonight, but you're way too intoxicated, because I'm telling you, a night of pleasure and a night of fun is never going to be worth going to prison over or being charged with a felony sex offense that you could not just get convicted, but you could also have to register as a sex offender for the rest of your life. So it's not worth it.
Well, Jeff, let me ask you something. We've been dancing around the issue. A girl reaches out to you. She asks, hey, what happened last night? We're giving this general advice. What would you do? Who would you call? What would you do in that moment? Would you reach out to an attorney?
I think that is the very first thing you should do. Look, excuse yourself. Say, look, I want to talk with you. This is a really, really bad time. Can I give you a call back? Now you reach out to a criminal defense attorney and say, listen, this may be nothing, but I would probably be inclined to pay for even an hour of, a consultation with a seasoned criminal defense attorney who can tell you, hold on, step back for just a moment before you go forward, before you do anything further, because anything you say, once you've already said it, we can't take it back, right? We can't tell you not to say something you've already said, but it is something that we can use. We can definitely tell you things that you should avoid and things that you should not say if you are going to speak to this person, because I think it is only going to lead to a very, very bad result, especially if you haven't spoken to an attorney to really get a better idea what happened, what you should say, or what you should not say.
It's no harm, no foul. I mean, the best case scenario is you contact an attorney and the attorney counsels you and educates you, quite frankly, on things that you should do or refrain from doing. And the best case scenario is nothing happens. But now you come away from that more confident in yourself and more confident in things you should be doing and not doing. Worst case scenario, you've contacted an attorney who can help you early on and potentially prevent charges from being brought or minimize the damage as much as possible.
I couldn't agree more. I know, and one thing I want to talk about, I know earlier we talked about these recorded calls. I'm not going to go into detail about it because I think, this was a video that we shot previously. It's on our YouTube channel. Look for that. Eli went into great detail over recorded phone calls and things like that. And remember, they could be any type of call. It doesn't have to be involving, a sex incident. It could be any alleged crime that they believe that you are involved in. So definitely click on the subscribe button. Definitely follow these videos because, look, it's free advice, but I think it is things that is very, a lot of people think it's common sense. It's not so common, like you would think that it is. And like I said, there's so many different avenues that you can go down that could lead to very, very bad results. So pay attention to this, subscribe.
And again, it's not quite apples to apples with the Trump trial, but without getting into too much detail, there's records.
Exactly.
The records are what came back to bite him. If this was done without some type of documented trail, who knows if there's proof in order to bring this case against him.
If you have questions, always ask, comment on these videos, follow us, subscribe. All right. Thanks for following, guys.